Hello, it's Anita from 106.5 FM. I have Claire from Autism Bedfordshire in the studio today. And if you can introduce yourself a bit more about what you do for your organisation and why you're here, please, Claire.
Okay. Firstly, thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Claire Thompson. I'm the Corporate Community Fundraiser for Autism Bedfordshire. This year, the charity is celebrating their 25th anniversary. So I'm out in the community, really, raising the profile of the charity and raising understanding of autism.
So, Claire, can you explain to our listeners exactly what autism is?
Okay. Autism is a hidden disability. So from the outset, someone with autism, you wouldn't be aware that they have autism. I see it as a bit like a rainbow. You have the autistic spectrum. So you have some people that will be high functioning on the spectrum and those that will require a lifetime of specialist support. Autism affects the way that a person thinks and views the world around them. So you often find that although individuals with autism are different, there's three main areas of difficulty. So that's difficulty with social communication, difficulty with social interaction, and difficulty in coping with imagination and change of routine. We also, over the years, most recently, have picked up on sensory issues. So issues, for example, with touch, taste, light and sound. My son, who's autistic, has a particular element where he doesn't like his hair being cut or wearing certain clothes because he doesn't like the feel of the labels. He also doesn't like the noise of loud places, and that affects him as well.
So, Claire, what services do you provide for children with autism and their families?
Okay, so we provide a number of services around the county. We provide loads of autistic fun groups, so that's for children aged 0 to 12 years old, and their siblings as well, because we often find it's not only the child with autism that needs support, but it's the siblings alongside them. That runs at Great Denham Primary School in Bedford. We also run them in Luton and Leighton Buzzard and Biggleswade as well, and that not only supports the child with autism and the siblings, but also the parents and carers too. We offer one-to-one support for the children with autism, so you can go off as a parent safe in the knowledge that your child's being looked after, and go and have a cup of tea and share experiences with other parents. It's lovely because it feels like you have somewhere where you can belong and somewhere where you know that your child can be themselves without the fear of being judged. We also have our wanted fun groups for teenagers, so they're social activity groups, and they run again in the 4 areas of the county. We often find teenagers with autism, because they're different, they stand out, they get bullied. So the social groups for teenagers with autism gives them the opportunity to build friendships, to find support in other ways outside of a school environment. So fantastic projects that we do.
So, Claire, what services do you provide for adults with the autism condition?
We have employability workshops. It's known that only 15% of adults with autism are in full-time employment. So we have employment support officers both north and south of the county that work with adults with autism in volunteering placements to try and get them out into the workplace. We also work with organisations, companies where they have an adult with autism in employment and they need to know what allowances they need to make within the workplace to make the working environment best for the person working for them, so they can sort of both have a win-win situation. We also have our skills project, which is simple things that we take for granted, say for example understanding facial expressions that someone with autism can struggle with. So it's as simple as going along to workshops and learning about emotions and whether someone's happy or sad. It's also about learning how to manage your finances if you want to become independent and live outside your family home. We support adults with autism in doing that. We also as well have our social groups. So I went along to a social group and spoke to one of the adults with autism, and he literally, his only reason for going outside the house once a week was to come along to our social group that we hold in Bedford and Luton. Other than that, he'd just stay at home, because of majority of adults with autism that we support, they only socialise with their immediate family. They don't really go out much, they're isolated, so we want to give them that purpose, that reason to go out the door every day.
If you're worried that a family member or your child may have autism, what should you do?
When I'm talking from personal experience here, when we were concerned about my son Zach and him being autistic, we first of all went to see the doctor, who dismissed what we said and sent us away again. And from that experience, I learned that you need to, if you think your child is different, you need to write down the reasons why. When you're put in that position where you're facing a professional, that you're able to say, these are the reasons why I think my son has the condition, these are the changes and the differences that I've noticed, and I think we need support. And then you get referred to a paediatrician. So in Bedford, that's at the Child Development Centre, where they'll then assess your child. It's normally sort of a multi-agency approach that they take to assessment. But yes, I'd say if you had concerns, definitely go to see your doctor. If your child's at school, speak to your school and see if they've noticed anything. They can normally pick up on things as well that can help you and also feed into the reports that you can bring to the doctors with you.
I know as a society we are aware of autism more now than previously, and there are a lot of adults who are walking around who are either on the spectrum or who are autistic, but they've never been fully diagnosed. I mean, can you make a comment on that, Claire?
Yeah, absolutely. What I've found just going out and about in the community is people come up and speak to me and say to me that they think something's different with them, then they struggle to fit in. They're suffering with mental health issues because of that. What we would recommend in that instance is, again, that you go to the doctors. The Autism Diagnosis Service has been set up over in north of Bedford in Clapham, so you'll be referred over there for assessment. But I just think it's important. I think it's fantastic now that there's a lot more awareness about autism. There was the A word on television, which is first time we've had anything to do with autism on mainstream telly, raising lots of awareness. But you also have the older community who an autism diagnosis wasn't available or around when they were young. If your child was different, you just sort of hid them under the radar. And yes, there are many adults with autism that do need support, and we as a charity are here to offer that support, and we'd love to help you with social groups or with employment or any support you need, really.
I would imagine there were quite a few adults walking around with the autism or the spectrum who people just associate as being slightly eccentric or slightly different or having a character or a personality.
Yes. I always see people with autism, and like everyone with autism are very special people, but I always see them as a little bit quirky. So they all have their special interests. They have a certain way of seeing things. They like things done in a certain way. And yes, there's probably loads of people. For example, Bill Gates has Asperger's. Don't know if you know that. But yes, his focus is on IT. So you also have lots of people that can go on to be successful in sort of their obsession or their interest if they pursue that as a career. But at the same time, I just want to make clear that not everyone, I don't know if you've seen Rain Man the film, but not everyone's like Rain Man, not everyone's amazingly academic and brilliant, but as I say, every person with autism is special and they've got their own quirks. I think it's a good way of summing up.
I know a little bit, I do know some stuff with regards to autism because my son's on the spectrum, but I do know other parents who are in a similar position, but they have decided not to give their child what they consider a label and officially have their child classified as being either Asperger's or having been a sufferer of autism. Can you comment on that, please, Claire?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's entirely at the discretion of the family whether they want to pursue the avenue of getting a formal diagnosis for their child. I personally, my son went through the system, he's being diagnosed. We've been able to access a lot of support for that. We also, speaking to other people that I've come across, they find that their child is behaving difficultly at school, they're exhibiting challenging behaviour, and because of that they're facing exclusion, and where something as simple as getting a diagnosis would mean that they'd be able to access more support, one-to-one support within a school environment if needed. and more support for their child would be fantastic. But at the same time, I know there is very much a stigma attached to labels. When I was at school, it was like the word, it's an appalling word now, but the word retard, that someone was picked on because of that. But I do think there's a lot more of acceptance and understanding of people with disabilities in society today. And it's important that if your child does have a condition or at college, that you go out there and you help them so that they can achieve all that they want to in their life. But at the same time, if they're happy and you're happy and you know that they're doing well, then it's fine. They don't need that label. So as I say, it's entirely at the discretion of the parents.
Claire, I know you've mentioned a bit about your history with your son Zach. Can you tell us a bit more about why you work for Autism Bedfordshire?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. When my son was born, I had a career break from work. As he was approaching 2, he lost his speech. So that's very common with children with autism. They're speaking and then the speech just stops completely, which threw me. We were referred over to a paediatrician by the doctors, and they diagnosed autism. But it was so hard for him. A lot of what I think something that's quite unknown is with struggles with communication is a lot of children and adults with autism, they can't actually speak, and it's incredibly hard to get your point across if you're not able to say that you're hungry, tired, thirsty or in pain. He used to headbutt the floor in frustration because he couldn't speak and I couldn't understand him. He used to bite his own hands. It was terribly hard to watch as a parent because my heart bled just literally looking at him and seeing him in that condition, unable to speak to me. We went along to a children's play group, and it's a fantastic group, but all the parents were sitting in chairs around the hall, and the children were supposed to be playing in the middle while the parents had a cup of tea and a chat. And Zach, because he couldn't talk, this child just took toys away from him. It kept taking toys away. He was crying again, and as I say, when he can't speak, he gets frustrated. He was headbutting the floor, tears were rolling down his eyes, he was biting himself, and instead of getting that support that you'd wish that other parents would understand, I got these judgmental stares. The room just went completely quiet, and people just looked at me, the mums just looked at me as I literally went into the room, put my son under my arm because he was really distressed at that point, and carried him crying and screaming out of the room, with myself actually crying and screaming. And all it would have taken would have been one person to come up to me and say, "Can I help? Is everything all right?" But you just feel like you're so judged and also so isolated from the rest of society. After that happened at the Mum and Tops group, I absolutely refused to go back because it wasn't fair on Zach and it wasn't fair on me. And so we found, after Zach was diagnosed, Autism Bedfordshire as a charity, and we now go along to the Loads of Autistic Fun group at Great Denham. And as I say, it gives you somewhere where you can belong, somewhere where I know Zach can go and play in a safe environment. He can enjoy himself, and I can go and sit with parents and share experiences. And it's somewhere to know that you're not alone. There's other people who have children with the condition, and you can support each other. And he's having such a lovely time at Loaf now. He wants to go every single week. He can't wait to go back. And for me, it was so important, because he's my child, to society where people are understanding and supportive of people with autism, rather than the judgmental stares you get, the touch you get when you're out in public, when your child's struggling to cope. And even I've had someone tell me that my child deserves a good smack because he's not behaving appropriately at the time. And it's just really hard to hear someone that you don't know just coming up to tell you that, rather than being supportive and trying to help you, or just put a hand on your shoulder and tell you it's okay. So yeah, that's my reasons for working at the charity. It's very personal to me, but I'm very passionate about what we do.
If our listeners would like to help support your charity, how would they, or how can they get involved?
Yes, I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the services we provide for children is a summer activity scheme where we take children with autism out on minibuses, and they experience the same life experiences as other children their age. So trips to the farm, trips to the swimming, to soft play, in a safe environment, and we provide one-to-one support. We're looking for volunteers that be able to come and help out on our summer scheme over the summer holidays. So if you've got some time free, you want to come and lend a hand. We'd also love to have people fundraising for us with government cuts. We as a charity are funded entirely by grants and donations. So if you want to jump out out of that aeroplane and skydive for us, or you want to do that race and support the charity, that would be amazing. Also at the same time, I work with companies locally, so a lot of companies have charities of the year they support, and I'd love to work with companies and help to raise our profile, understanding of autism, and also vital funding for us. But working with us is fun. I like to make it fun and think of quirky things that we can do to raise funds. So it brings companies together to support us. If you don't work within a company, or you don't really fancy flying out of an aeroplane, jumping out of an airplane, that's absolutely fine. If you know someone like your hairdressers or your car garage who could hold a collection tin for us, even something as simple as that we would really appreciate it, because it would all help the charity to raise vital funds.
If someone is interested in contacting you as a charity, how can they do that?
Yes, we've got our website, so that's www.autismbedfordshire.net. We also have our telephone helpline, so you're welcome to phone up if you are a parent concerned that your child may have autism, or if you're an adult with autism and you need support. The telephone number is 01234 214 871. Alternatively, if you're interested in fundraising, as I say, my name's Claire Thompson, you're welcome to give me a ring on the number I just mentioned, or alternatively email me, Claire, so that's claire.thompson, THOMPSON, at autismbeds.org. But yes, I'd be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you, Claire, for coming in and explaining to our listeners about Autism Bedfordshire, and also explaining about autism. A lot of people, I would imagine, aren't aware what autism is, or may not be aware that they possibly may know someone, or probably might have it themselves. So thank you very much for coming in and talking to us.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciated the opportunity to be here, and I often find that people don't hear about our charity until you need to access our services. So yeah, it's really important, as it's our 25th anniversary, just to raise our profile in the community and say, hello, we're here, come and say hi. Yeah, so thank you for inviting me.